And I turn this over to the Honorable Mayor Paula.
So a keynote speech. Oh boy. I hope I do this right because I'm used to being able to talk about what happened in Kaufman and I have my documents and my stats and that's where I go. But this is a little bit mushier. Yeah. So, but I do want to just get this in there right quick. Um, it is more statistical, but there's another little aspect of all of it. And there's been a year-long ongoing investigation that regarding the export pins in Texas. And I want to tell you that a public information request is only applicable to one of those pins because it's run by the Texas Department of Ag. The rest of them are privately owned, and we can't really access the documents. We can't quite tell what's going on. But last month, almost 20% of the horses that went through the TDA, Texas Department of Ag, export pin were rejects. And a reject is a horse that the Mexicans will not accept, and it is returned to the kill buyer. And what happens next? So we know what has happened next in the past. And I'm telling you, between 15 and 20% last month, between May and August of last summer, there were, let me think about what does. Well, I know that there were, I think it was 43 blind horses. And a little over 10% of the horses were rejected, but including those blind horses. So I think that that's something we need to know about and think about in terms of investigations and what we want to do there. That guy is in Kaufman, and he seems to be doing a lot of the exporting for a bunch of the kill buyers. So anyway, I did want to get that out there because, all right, well, okay, back to keynoting, okay? In this room, I love the thought of in this room, and Susan has really laid it out already, how much has happened in this room, building on one thing on top of another, so that we're building this case and this just a real power to why it's so unacceptable, the abuse of horses through whether it's as PMU mares or for horse slaughter, which are really connected. We are in this room, and I'm so proud and happy to be here. I want to say that here we've learned tools for leadership. There's one thing to have this emotional connection to horses, but it's entirely different when we can talk about the toxicology, the burden to the communities, and the PMU mares, that threat to women's health. So we have here the tools for leadership, and that means we have the tools to create the future. So that is what I want to just really encourage everyone here, that in this room, we have really built quite a bit of power. And part of that is the courage that we have gained from all these tools and being here together and using it. And so I want to encourage you to always, don't let them write you off as sentimental. We have a very good tool chest here. And I want to point out, too, that, we're not asking for some kind of social change. We're asking for legislation that reflects our values. We don't value horse slaughter and abuse and drugs that threaten women and food safety that is non-existent, even though we're not the ones eating it. So in this room is kind of this thing that I think about a lot. It's something I really value. But I wanted to tell you how glad I am to be here. Susan covered a lot of the things I was kind of thinking of bringing up. So I'm going to take a minute to tell you about how I'm really here, not just here. I had a really interesting journey to get here, but I arrived 2 weeks ago tomorrow with my 4 dogs and 6 goats, and the 2 horses should be here Wednesday. And my little house is just up the road, and I'm just really happy to be here. And I'm excited about the work to, thanks. And I wanted to tell you an interesting thing that happened. Interesting, like, what a close call. But I was less than 200 miles from Kaufman pulling this steel trailer with the animals, and got hit from behind. This little car going about 75 or 80 miles an hour, me going 45. It was a construction zone on Interstate 30, and it was really stunning. And the animals all were fine. That trailer absorbed a lot of the energy. I had bales of hay at the back door, so where this young lady ran into me, and her car just kind of exploded. And she had all these airbags, her little smart car. Anyway, my bumper was about 3 or 4 inches off the ground with pulling this trailer, barely able to get to the next town when everything was said and done and the police left and everything, to Mount Pleasant. And in Mount Pleasant, I went into this tire place that I'd already Googled, and it said it was closed, but they were still in there. So I went in and I started laying it out how I needed help. And this woman, a customer, really took me under her wing, and she said she would bring her livestock trailer so that I could put my animals in there because it was more open. Overnight, they would be too hot. And then one thing led to another, and this person ended up hooking me up with somebody who could fix the bumper the next morning. And a guy named Charlie who had kennels, I was able to put all the animals in kennels. That they were so happy the next morning. It was wonderful. And nothing like this has ever happened to me before. That's amazing, isn't it? And then when these wonderful people had taken me in and taken such care, and I thought, if I have to turn around and go back to Kaufman, I'll never get out of there. And so it was wonderful, and in so many ways. And then, of all things, it was at this large equipment place where they have tractors and stuff that they sell and repair, I was, and they wouldn't let me pay them. And I said, but why? Because you've done this wonderful thing for me. And the older gentleman, I think his name is Mr. Conroy. Anyway, he just put his foot down and walked away. And then all these guys, because the kennels were there on this property, a bunch of these guys helped me load up all the animals. They were very happy. I couldn't believe they just got right back in that trailer. They were anyway, but I said, why? And the guy who actually fixed the bumper, and he told me, it's not just fixed to get you to New York, it's fixed. Oh, wow. And so his name is Jeff, and his wife, who set this all up, is Robin. And he said, because we've all been out there vulnerable and wanted somebody to help us like this and not take advantage of us. And so I couldn't pay them, and I couldn't figure out, I don't like to send them a gift certificate. Stupid. So, Susan, I'd like to make a donation to Equine Advocates. Pretend this is a great big check. And I want to ask you I'll figure out how to contact these people, because I know the name of the place, and just let them know that this donation was made in their name and as gratitude to them. So, thanks. some keynote, right? Okay, so, and you know, if it's to help sponsor the goats, that'd be fine too. You know, I came with my 6 goats and my 4 dogs, so the goats are kind of they're kind of cool to me. So I was going to talk about a bunch of stuff that Susan did talk about, but how, you know, we've laid it out here. In 2012, we had just a stunning success. Well, Susan calls it the turning point when Victoria said, I'm going to take this on. She said, everything we need is here in this room to do this. And she thought she was alone. And she also said that she likes to fix things, which I like that idea. And in 2013 was Dr. Anne Marini presented her toxicology report. John Holland presented on the fraudulent nature of the GAO report. And Dr. Kulikowski, DVM, he presented a list of about 350 drugs and talked about their toxic nature and making horse meat just completely unacceptable. And in 2014, Victoria described the defunding and how the next step was legislation. And also Dr. Kilasamy, Dr. Ray, awakened us to what was going on with the PMU industry in China and the return of Premarin, or Dwavy, as he said it was called, and marketing it to third world countries, the women who wouldn't have access to information about it. And we've been seeing plenty of adverts ourselves, I believe, about that lovely archaic drug. All right, but that's a little bit of what this little summit has done, building one thing on top of another. And I just think that we can look at it as success has been constant. You know, we are as awful as it is to take so long, we are getting there. And it is interesting because we had at the first summit a congressman telling us about how he was criticized for supporting legislation that was about horses when we needed to, they in Congress felt that they needed to focus on people. Well, we have certainly got plenty going now that it's not just horses, it's people. So, so having said all that, I'm going to say that we have had an uncompromising will to fight and address the issue of horse slaughter and the abuse of horses. Relentless determination that for too many years, the horses I have seen every day on the Kilbyers property in Kaufman and nearby, hundreds of beautiful and sometimes sick or injured horses with no chance in hell of receiving one bit of care. Yet, one Kilbyer was interviewed by a reporter who had just gotten through interviewing me. He went over there, of course, and this Kilbyer tells the reporter, you know, we're the only ones taking care of these horses. And it was absolutely infuriating and strange to me that the reporter indicated to me that he believed this line of stuff. I'm trying to clean up my language. So what I want to say to you is that our resolve is our power. And it is a kind of grit that we all have that will get us there. And we will get there. And it's almost like being terrorized when I've been living there for so long and seeing this constant thing. And it's so good to be here. But I can't ever forget that. Now, I just want to end with saying a couple of other things. Mary Nash, many of you never met her, but she was a dear, good friend who really brought me to this issue, and she was just amazing. and a non-smoker died of lung cancer young, too young. My dad said he wished that he could have taken her place. And anyway, I just want to repeat something that Mary said, which was, after all the work she had done researching it, because, like a lot of you in this room, her position was, well, is horse slaughter good for horses? And, the research was clearly no, it is a horse's worst nightmare. But she did the research, and she said to me one day, the thing is, the only reason these horses are here, the only thing wrong with these horses is that they were for sale. And so that really kind of sums it up. Every horse there. Anyway, I always want to mention Mary, and then in the end, I just want to bring up one other little thing. There was an article that Susan sent me that I looked at and was irritated, pretty much. But it's a lot of stuff like that comes out, stuff, and the headline was "Why Americans Should Be Eating More Horse." What? So here, I want to read a little bit of this from you. He talks about, I'm not even going to say that reporter's name, idiot. So that he says that this was about 4 days ago, I believe. It was in this thing called BusinessInsider.com, but it was from another thing called Modern Notion. Is that right? Anyway, he says he writes about the European kerfuffle. Kind of diminishing the whole issue, the kerfuffle over being fed horse meat that was not labeled as horse meat, and then talks about how American restaurants had tried to have some, quote, tongue-in-cheek fun by serving clearly labeled horse meat. They stopped due to the public's negative response, and then this writer mentions also, quote, dissuading visits from the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. Interestingly, this person doesn't say why the FDA would have been on site at all, but it sure would have been the end of that story, wouldn't it? Anyway, he does go on to describe a specious history of horse meat consumption. They say history is written by the winners. But I would like to say that he is not writing the history of horse meat. We are. This guy says, quote, knee-jerk prohibition of horse meat is based on sentimentality, and it becomes increasingly illogical with each passing year, end quote. I would say that this summit says au contraire. Thank you.